You sit suspended over a freezing stone void in the dead of winter. An icy draft rushes straight up from the dark pit beneath your wooden seat. There is no flush handle, no ceramic glaze, and certainly no roll of soft paper. Answering nature's call here was an extreme test of endurance. Today, you press a button and waste instantly disappears. But a medieval castle housed hundreds of people, producing hundreds of tons of waste every single year. How did majestic stone fortresses keep from drowning in their own filth? Behind the romantic fantasy of knights and royalty lay an urgent architectural dilemma. Enter the garderobe. The small stone closet jutted directly out from the high exterior walls of the castle, suspended dozens of feet in the air. When you stepped inside, there were no pipes or traps to block rising odors. Gravity was the only mechanism, dropping everything straight down into open moats. The word garderobe literally meant guarding robes. Castle residents intentionally hung their most expensive woolen tunics right beside the toilet shaft. Why store fine clothing in a bathroom? The pungent ammonia vapors rising from the pit acted as a natural pesticide, driving away destructive moths and fleas. It worked surprisingly well, but it meant high-ranking nobles walked into royal banquets smelling faintly of a sewer. To them, strong odors signaled pest-free wealth. Without manufactured toilet paper, what did people wipe with? Archaeological findings from medieval urban excavations reveal a fascinating hierarchy of everyday hygiene materials. Peasants relied on whatever nature provided freely: soft green moss, handfuls of dry straw, scrap rags, or even smooth river stones. Royalty and wealthy castle lords enjoyed the ultimate luxury of the era: scraps of soft linen cloth or discarded pieces of imported silk. All of this waste cascaded down the external chutes directly into the castle moat below, turning defensive waterways into stagnant, foul-smelling cesspools. Ironically, this provided unexpected military defense. Invading armies attempting to swim or scale the fortress walls faced a repulsive biological barrier. Yet for 300,000 years before castles existed, your nomadic ancestors never encountered this sanitation nightmare. How did prehistoric humans handle waste? Can verify. For nearly 300,000 years, your hunter-gatherer ancestors roamed open landscapes. They never worried about cleaning or plumbing. Nature handled everything seamlessly. Small bands of 20 to 50 nomadic foragers moved camp every few weeks. When you constantly travel, waste never accumulates in one location. Sunlight, rainfall, soil microbes, and scavenging insects broke down organic material rapidly. Foragers lived in a state of continuous, effortless ecological recycling. Can verify. Anthropologist Richard Lee documented that mobile foraging communities maintained pristine living spaces simply by walking a short distance away from their temporary shelters. You walked behind a thick cluster of bushes, dug a quick hole with a wooden stick, and covered it with dry earth. Water sources remained uncontaminated because nobody stayed in one spot long enough to poison local streams. Fresh running water was always nearby. Low population density was the greatest health shield our species ever possessed. Disease transmission chains simply broke before spreading to other wandering family bands. Your biological disgust response evolved specifically during this era, training your brain to stay far away from decomposing organic matter in the wild. When resources depleted or a campsite grew dirty, the group packed up and moved on. The earth cleansed the old ground behind them. Paleopathologists Cohen and Armalagos revealed that prehistoric forager skeletons show remarkably few signs of chronic infectious disease compared to later farming societies. Can verify. You never had to scrub a toilet, unclog a pipe, or worry about sewage backing up. The entire planet was your open-air living room. Then, around 12,000 years ago, humans made the most radical decision in evolutionary history: we stopped moving and invented agriculture. Can verify. In his landmark analysis, Jared Diamond described agriculture as humanity's greatest mistake. Permanent villages created an unprecedented biological crisis: waste had nowhere to go. Thousands of people were now living, eating, and sleeping directly on top of their own accumulated refuse. The natural cycle of nomadic cleansing was permanently broken. By the Middle Ages, humans built massive stone fortresses to protect themselves from enemies. But how did engineers solve the growing mountain of castle waste? When medieval lords constructed massive stone fortresses to survive sieges, they unintentionally engineered the greatest waste trap in human history. Can verify. A single medieval castle was not just a home. It was a crowded, self-contained mini-city packing hundreds of soldiers, servants, blacksmiths, and horses inside. Consider the biological math. 300 adult occupants produce roughly 150 kilograms of solid waste and hundreds of liters of liquid daily. Can verify. In a nomadic camp, this disappeared harmlessly into the earth. But behind 5-foot-thick solid stone walls, waste had nowhere to go naturally. Castle lords demanded privacy and convenience. Royalty refused to walk down endless winding stairs in the freezing midnight cold just to use a pit. Medieval master masons devised a clever architectural compromise. They built stone corbels, heavy brackets extending outward from the exterior wall face to hold small booths. You sat on a simple wooden plank with a keyhole-shaped opening cut through it, suspended 50 feet above the rocky ground or the castle moat. Without pipes, running water, or S-bends, medieval builders relied entirely on gravity. Everything dropped straight down through the open vertical shaft into the open air. On external fortress walls, multiple garderobe chutes created long, discolored streaks down the stonework, creating an unmistakable visual mark of human habitation. Not all castles discharged into moats. Many emptied into sealed underground stone cesspits located directly beneath the fortress cellars, accumulating tons of organic sludge. These vertical stone shafts created a powerful chimney effect. Warm indoor castle air rose, drawing freezing air and overpowering foul odors up into living quarters. Your modern toilet prevents this using a simple curved water seal called a P-trap. But in medieval castles, no such water barrier existed. Castle dwellers used dried herbs, rushes, and fragrant flowers strewn across stone floors to mask the constant underlying stench of their own fortifications. Yet sweet-smelling herbs could only hide the reality for so long. Every underground pit eventually filled up, creating an unavoidable ecological emergency. When the vaults became completely choked with sludge, who was brave enough to climb inside and empty them? Enter the most dangerous workers in Europe. Step inside the private chamber of a medieval lord. The garderobe was carefully integrated directly into thick defensive walls rather than external outhouses. Directly above or beside this seat hung royal tunics, heavy wool cloaks, and expensive furs. Why store luxury garments inside your bathroom? Can verify. In a world without synthetic mothballs, decomposing urine produced potent ammonia vapors. This suffocating gas drove away destructive fabric moths, lice, and fleas. For European nobility, walking into a great banquet smelling distinctly of sharp ammonia was a bizarre status symbol, proving your garments were completely free of vermin. Outside the chamber, stone shafts dropped vertically straight down the outer wall facade. Gravity did all the work without needing a single drop of water. Where did it all land? Most castle chutes dumped waste directly into the surrounding moat, turning defensive waterways into putrid, stagnant cesspools over time. Popular films show knights valiantly swimming across castle moats. In reality, diving into a medieval moat risked lethal infection from raw bacterial waste. Can verify. Landlocked castles without moats used internal stone chutes that drained into subterranean catch basins. Over several years, these enclosed stone vaults filled with dozens of tons. These open vertical shafts represented a critical security vulnerability. In 1204, French soldiers famously captured Château Gallard by climbing directly up the garderobe chute. Can verify. After that shocking breach, castle architects across Europe hastily retrofitted iron security grates inside toilet chutes, trading waste flow efficiency for military safety. The iron grates prevented enemy infiltration, but they created a terrible side effect: frequent blockages that trapped rotting organic debris right inside the castle walls. In modern architecture, wastewater flows unseen through smooth, pressurized PVC networks. You never have to manually unclog a vertical castle stone shaft. During brutal European winters, freezing temperatures froze waste solid inside external stone chutes, creating towering ice columns that completely disabled royal bathrooms. Can verify. When chutes froze or overflowed, even royalty abandoned their private stone closets, resorting to simple ceramic chamber pots kept warm right beside bedroom hearths. Eventually, every underground vault reached absolute capacity. Clearing thousands of pounds of sludge required specialists operating under the cover of total darkness. When the city bell struck midnight, ordinary life paused and the gong farmers went to work. They were medieval Europe's essential underground waste technicians. By strict royal law, they could only operate between 9 at night and 5 in the morning to spare citizens the unbearable sights and smells. Can verify. Imagine descending a slippery wooden ladder into a pitch-black stone vault filled up to your chest with decomposing human sludge. Could you endure it? Working in teams of 3 or 4, one man climbed down to shovel the sludge into heavy wooden buckets, while others hauled them up above. The physical filth was unpleasant, but the invisible air was lethal. Trapped pockets of methane and hydrogen sulfide gas caused instant suffocation inside enclosed pits. Can verify. To test the air before entering, workers lowered a single lit candle into the shaft. If the flame flickered out, toxic gas was present. An extinguished flame signaled that oxygen had been completely displaced. Entering that pit meant sudden loss of consciousness within seconds, resulting in immediate death. Why take such an extreme risk? Gong farming was among the highest-paying manual jobs in medieval Europe, earning several times a typical laborer's daily wage. Can verify. Once buckets were filled, workers loaded the heavy sludge into large wooden barrels on horse carts, rushing to clear city gates before dawnbreak. Where was all this waste taken? Known as night soil, it was transported to surrounding rural farmlands and sold to farmers as valuable organic fertilizer. This formed a complete circular loop. Castle food grew in fields, passed through occupants, and returned to enrich the very same soil for future harvests. Despite their crucial role, Gong farmers faced severe social segregation. Laws often forced them to live in isolated zones outside city walls due to lingering stench. In modern society, thousands of miles of hidden sewer lines and automated treatment plants have made this entire labor force completely invisible to daily life. Yet even with night soil collection, medieval cities faced a silent, unseen killer lurking in their drinking water: invisible microscopic parasites. Beneath crowded medieval streets, porous soil allowed cesspit waste to seep directly into nearby town drinking wells. How did the human body cope? Can verify. Modern paleopathology excavations analyzing fossilized cesspool sediment reveal that medieval populations suffered from staggering rates of internal intestinal parasites. Can verify. Your stomach churns after dinner. In medieval Europe, nearly everyone from peasants to royalty carried roundworms and whipworms throughout their lives. Can verify. Studies by Larson and Armalagos show that bone lesions and chronic anemia spiked dramatically once human populations packed into permanent stone dwellings. Can verify. Every morning, townspeople lowered buckets into community wells completely unaware that porous soil allowed cesspit runoff to filter straight into drinking supplies. Medieval physicians did not understand germs. Instead, they blamed diseases entirely on miasma, the theory that poisonous foul-smelling vapors corrupted human body humors. Because doctors believed bad smells caused sickness, nobles carried perfumed pomander balls stuffed with cloves and lavender to ward off invisible airborne plagues. To avoid contaminated water supplies, people of all social classes drank weak fermented ale or wine, since the boiling process inadvertently sanitized the liquid. In crowded cities without castle chutes, residents dumped chamber pots straight out upper-story windows into street gutters, shouting quick warnings to startle pedestrians below. Urban laws permitted roaming pigs to forage through open street sludge, acting as living waste disposal units while creating further hygiene chaos. Contrary to modern myths, medieval people did not enjoy living in filth. Public bathhouses were widely popular across Europe until plagues forced their closure. Can verify. Castle etiquette strictly required guests to wash their hands in scented rosewater basins before touching shared food platters during formal banquets. The problem was not lack of desire for hygiene. It was an engineering bottleneck. Human biology remained ancient while living density multiplied 10,000-fold. Your body never evolved for stone closets, vertical chutes, or enclosed pits. For hundreds of millennia, human anatomy adapted for open-air natural positions. Today you sit comfortably on smooth porcelain thrones. But does this modern sitting posture actually align with how your digestive tract was built to function? To understand why your daily bathroom experience feels strangely unnatural, we have to look inside your own ancient anatomy. Can verify. Look at how you sit on a modern toilet today. Your hips bend at a clean 90-degree angle, just like sitting on an ordinary chair. To your ancient biology, this comfortable sitting chair creates an internal roadblock. Your body evolved over hundreds of thousands of years for deep outdoor squatting. Inside your pelvis lies the pub erectilis muscle. When you stand or sit upright, this muscular sling loops around the rectum, deliberately kinking it like a garden hose. When your ancestors squatted naturally in the open wild, their knees pulled up toward the chest, creating an acute 35-degree angle. This 35-degree squat fully relaxes the pub erectilis muscle, unkinking the digestive passage and creating a completely straight, effortless exit path for waste. In a famous clinical study, physician Dov Sikharov timed bowel movements across different postures, finding that squatting required less than half the time and strain. Can verify. Anthropologists call this evolutionary mismatch, an ancient anatomical design operating inside an artificial modern environment it was never built to handle. Can verify. Instead of spending one quick minute in an open field, you now sit on a comfortable ceramic seat scrolling through social media for 20 minutes. Sitting unsupported over an open circular hole for extended periods places continuous gravitational pressure on pelvic veins, significantly increasing risks of chronic hemorrhoids and constipation. Can verify. That is why modern ergonomic footstools have become a global phenomenon. They elevate your feet to simulate the ancestral 35-degree squat on a modern toilet. Beyond physical posture, modern bathrooms altered our psychology. For millennia, excretion was not an intensely private taboo hidden behind locked soundproof doors. In hunter-gatherer bands of 30 people, everyone saw, heard, and smelled everything. Bodily functions were treated as completely routine natural events of daily life. Today, the bathroom is often the only room in your home where nobody can bother you, a quiet fortress of psychological isolation in a hyper-connected world. From open prehistoric savannas to drafty castle chutes and sparkling modern porcelain, humanity underwent an incredible journey to tame its most basic biological output. The next time you push that shiny chrome flush handle, consider the staggering engineering miracle happening in milliseconds beneath your floorboards. When you press the flush lever, 6 liters of water swirl downward in 3 seconds, whisking waste away through smooth siphon action. Can verify. Invented in 1596 by Sir John Harrington and perfected by Alexander Cumming, the S-trap water barrier completely solved centuries of deadly sewer air. Can verify. Beneath your feet lies a hidden empire of hundreds of thousands of miles of concrete channels moving waste silently to automated biofiltration plants. Historians and epidemiologists agree, modern underground sanitation has saved far more human lives than all the antibiotics and vaccines ever invented combined. Can verify. The forgotten gong farmers who climbed into lethal darkness and the castle builders who experimented with gravity paved the difficult path toward modern civilization. For nearly 300,000 years you wandered freely. For a few thousand years you trapped yourself in stone walls. Now you sit in porcelain luxury. Yet beneath this modern comfort, your body remains a prehistoric machine that expects the biomechanics, posture, and natural rhythms of the ancient savanna wild. Elevate your feet, put away the glowing phone screen, and let your ancient digestive anatomy do its work without artificial mechanical strain. Every time you take your spotless indoor plumbing for granted, remember the freezing stone holes, the ammonia-soaked garments, and the dark underground vaults of the past. Even the most powerful monarchs in European history could not buy the simple comfort, warmth, and dignity you experience every single morning. You have warm water on demand, soft paper rolls, odorless air seals, and an invisible underground network carrying everything away instantly without a trace. How long do you think you would have survived inside a crowded medieval castle before begging for modern plumbing? Share your thoughts below. If exploring the hidden evolutionary and daily realities of our human ancestors fascinates you, be sure to subscribe for more deep historical journeys. So the next time you lock the door for a few peaceful minutes of modern solitude, take a deep breath of fresh, filtered air. You no longer sit suspended over a freezing stone void in the dead of winter. Civilization fought thousands of years so you could sit in peace.